has come on the show with us today, and we thank you, Senator Tom Cotton. Good morning.
Hey, Tommy. Good to be on with you guys.
Good to be on with you. How are you?
I'm doing okay. We've been here in Washington for a couple straight weeks now, trying to work out this rescue package that we just agreed to early this morning,
Yay.
and we'll be voting on later this afternoon.
Yeah.
Were you there last night till 1:30 when the agreement was finally made?
No, that's right. They pay Mitch McConnell the big bucks. To be totally transparent with everyone, the Senate floor has not been the scene of a lot of activity, not even smoke-filled rooms, but a lot of phone calls. So
Sure.
Whether I was working out of my office in the Senate office buildings or working out of my apartment, I've been working the phones over these last 7-10 days, probably more than any other time, for the simple reason that senators, like everyone, have tried to take precautions to avoid the spread of the coronavirus. We've seen the news that Rand Paul came down with it a few days ago. I had not been in close proximity to him, and since I'd been alive to the threat of this virus all the way back to January, I'd been exercising extreme caution in recent weeks, sending my own workforce home to telecommute as well. So right now I feel fine, but more importantly, hopefully our Kansans are going to be doing a little bit better once we get this bill passed.
Well, I know a lot of people are asking, when will the checks come out?
So that's a good question, Tommy. It's not an easy endeavor for our government to send out all those checks in such short order. But the Secretary of the Treasury, when he briefed us late last week, said he believes the IRS can get those tax rebate checks out in the first week of April. So that would be during Holy Week. And those checks, Tommy, to be clear to everyone, will be to anyone who filed a 2018 tax return and had income between $2,500 up to about $75,000. So almost twice the average income in Arkansas. And those checks will be in the amount of $1,200 per person and $500 for every child in a family. So a typical family of four in the working class in Arkansas will be getting a check for a little over $3,000.
Well,
that's just.
Go ahead.
But to be clear, that's just money to help people that we know are going to be struggling, people who have lost hours, people who are trying to prudently stockpile a little bit of extra food or paper products in their family and maybe having trouble making ends meet. We also, as part of this bill, something I proposed last week, have a significant increase in unemployment insurance, both the time period for unemployment and a significant increase in the amount of unemployment insurance. Because I recognize that there are people who, for instance, didn't have tax returns in 2018. Maybe they were a full-time parent who went back in the workforce last year. Maybe they were a student who graduated in 2019, and they have since lost their job. So in addition to those tax rebate checks, anyone who has lost their job because of this virus, and sadly, I'm afraid in Arkansas we're going to have tens of thousands of people in that situation. We'll see a significantly larger weekly unemployment check starting soon as well to get us through this temporary crisis.
Senator, I saw you on the floor the other day, and you were breaking apart some of the you didn't have all 1,400 pages of the other bill, and you were dissecting some of that. Based on what was voted on last night and what you guys have, on a scale of 1 to 10, how pleased are you with what you signed?
I'd say it's pretty high up on that scale, guys. The legislation about which I spoke on the floor was Nancy Pelosi's ideological wish list with all kinds of extraneous, unrelated matters, say money for an opera house in Washington, D.C., or forcing airlines to go carbon neutral, although I'm sure not her private airplane. That legislation played no role in what we're going to pass later today. What we're going to pass later today, what we agreed upon late last night, was legislation that's very similar to what I proposed last week to what Senator McConnell rolled out last week, in that it gives money directly to working families, to those who are unemployed. It extends loans to small businesses so they can keep their workforce attached to their business during this crisis. And it helps businesses and industries of all kinds who have been particularly hurt by this crisis, like airlines or hotels or so on and so forth. So all the wish list items that Nancy Pelosi wanted have nothing to do with the legislation we're passing.
Well, New York is a hotbed right now. Governor's come out and he says 6 to 8 weeks we will see the brunt of it here in Arkansas. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm afraid that's true. Just because we're only at a couple hundred cases in Arkansas now doesn't mean there aren't more cases out there that we haven't tested, or people are asymptomatic and don't realize that they may have it. That's why it's so important to follow the guidance from our governor or follow the guidance from your local county judge and mayors as well. New York obviously has some unique challenges given its population density in New York City, given the fact that it's such an international city. I mean, New York had a direct flight from Wuhan almost every day in December and January, with cases being seeded on a daily basis. So they're facing a particular challenge. What's so important, whether you're in New York, whether you're in Little Rock, whether you're in Yell County, is that we all work together. We all do our best as a people to arrest the spread of this virus, because right now we are blade running, guys, on the ability of our hospitals to handle the surge in these cases, the need for not just ventilators, but basic intensive care. And if our hospital systems collapse the way you've seen in Italy, the way you're starting to see in Spain, it means not just increased deaths from the coronavirus, but from any other person who needs intensive care, from someone who has a heart attack, from someone who has a stroke, from someone who is in a car accident. That's why it's so important that over these next few weeks, until we can scale up and surge our great American companies to produce more ventilators, more masks, more protective equipment for our hospitals, that we all do everything we can to keep the hospitals up and functioning until we have more capacity to address this crisis.
Well, China came out initially with a number around 3,000, 4,000, and they stuck at that number. They never gave it. How much can we trust them?
You can't trust China at all. I mean, one reason why China says they have no cases in Wuhan today is that they're not testing anymore, and that Xi Jinping ordered his people to go back to work irrespective of the risk. Look, Donald Trump, Asa Hutchinson don't want anyone to lose their job. They don't want any business to be shut down. But we all recognize the risk. And in some cases, we probably wouldn't go out anyway. I mean, not many people would go to restaurants if they were open for dine-in service today. Not many people would go to bars. But we're doing that because we care about our people, and we want to keep the number of cases, and especially the number of severe cases and deaths, as low as possible. The Chinese Communist Party doesn't care about its people. If they have to order their people back to work, and it means 3 or 4 or 5 million Chinese die out of 1.3 billion, they view that as just the eggs you have to crack to scramble an omelet.
Do you think they kept a lid on this too long?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. The public health authorities in Wuhan, which is a major city, it's not like some backwater outpost. I mean, more than 11 million people live in Wuhan, were aware in early December of a viral pneumonia of unknown origin. The Chinese Communist Party didn't disclose it publicly, didn't report it to the World Health Organization until late December, and they were still denying that there was human-to-human transmission by mid-January. If they had asked for the help they needed up front from their own very capable doctors and scientists in early December, they'd asked for help from the World Health Organization or from countries like the United States, Japan, and Korea, and European nations, then we could have perhaps kept this a local health problem inside Wuhan, or at least inside Hubei province. That's exactly what would happen in the United States. If you had an outbreak in Little Rock, our mayor, our governor, they would ask for help. They would do everything they could to try to contain it so it didn't get out to the other 4 corners of our state and get around to other 49 states. But China let what could have been a local health problem turn into a global pandemic that is destroying the lives of so many Americans.
Well, let me ask you this, and I'll let the others take over. Why would they sit on that?
They view it as embarrassing, as a blow to their prestige, and a risk to their plans to continue to try to challenge the United States as the dominant superpower in the world. They were humiliated by the SARS outbreak in 2002 and 2003, and they had the same pattern there. They moved a little bit faster now, but that's grading on a very steep curve. And it's China that is responsible for everything that is happening to us right now, and everything that's happening all around the world. The Chinese Communist Party helped unleash this plague on the world when they could have contained it, not just inside their own borders, but inside a small part of their own borders. That's why there has to be a reckoning with China on the back end of this.
We're visiting with U.S. Senator Tom Cotton. Senator, so obviously this stimulus package was needed. We've never seen anything like it in the history of our country, $2 trillion. Everybody's trying to be optimistic. I know the president was hoping, mentioned maybe Easter and hoping to get Americans back to work. Hearing what you're saying and what Governor Hutchinson said yesterday, if this thing does creep into 4 to 8 weeks, will the one check be enough? Is it something that Congress is going to have to go back and go, maybe we need to revisit this again? Or do you think this package will be enough to get us through this, month to 2 months period?
David, the short answer is I don't know. and we'll have to assess circumstances as they develop in the weeks ahead. Now, remember, the unemployment insurance is not just one check. That's a
That's
weekly
right.
check,
That's right.
just like unemployment is, and it's enhanced. I mean, the unemployment insurance in Arkansas should essentially be replacement for wages up to about a $50,000 a year income. So people who've lost their job through no fault of their own, through no fault of their businesses, are going to have the money they need. But it's to be determined yet whether this is going to be enough money for our families and for our small businesses, for critical industries like our airline industry, and for our hospitals as well. Ultimately, what we're going to have to see once we get through this critical 2 or 3 week period where we're trying to preserve hospital and especially intensive care capacity is a multifaceted and layered response to getting people out of their homes and back in their workplace. It's going to require more widespread and more rapid testing, more personal protective equipment, probably not just at hospitals, but in our workplaces as we get back to work. It's going to be a regional, even a local assessment as well. I mean, a lot of people are saying to Donald Trump, when are you going to open the country back up? Let's remember, Donald Trump didn't close anything down. You know, in Arkansas, for instance, it was Asa Hutchinson who made these decisions. It was Frank Scott in Little Rock, and they made prudent, smart decisions.
Right.
But it's going to be a decision that our governors and ultimately our county judges and our mayors have to make as well. And if, in fact, there are parts of our state in which the virus is more under control and we have widespread testing in 3 or 4 weeks, they might go to a gradual rolling reopening of public establishments. You might even see a kind of zoned or graded system where counties and states are evaluated on where they have things standing, so you can tell the people, like, this is a green zone, this is a yellow zone, this is still a red zone, and that will shift in a dynamic fashion over time. But it's not as simple as just saying, well, we can open it all back up. And remember too, there's feedback between the economic considerations and the health considerations. We can't just say, like, the elderly and the ill can stay inside. I mean, there are over 70 million people in this country who are 60 years and older. There are probably somewhere between 50 and 150 million who have some kind of pre-existing medical condition. Those are a lot of workers as well. Or look at our healthcare system. Our healthcare system is 1/6 of our economy as well. So it's careful considerations of all these factors that we're going to have to make, again, not just out of the White House, but in our state capitals and in our cities too.
Well, we had a lot of people out of work, panic, disease, disorder, social distancing. What do you fear the most, and what are you optimistic about?
So, Tommy, I think the biggest fear we face right now is what you see in Italy and what you see in Spain as well. The complete overwhelming of a hospital system somewhere that leads to the decisions that are so terrible to even imagine a doctor or a nurse having to decide who gets a ventilator, which patient survives. That's the biggest short-term fear that I have. That's one reason why it is so important that all of us do our part in following the guidance of the authorities on how to interact and where to go and what to do. What makes me most optimistic, though, Tommy, are the stories I hear from across Arkansas, that I hear from all across the country, of landlords telling tenants, just blanket tenants, no matter what their condition, don't bother paying the rent this month. I know everybody's tight.
Yeah,
we'll pitch it off to the end. Or owners being told by their lenders, don't worry about the mortgage. We can tack it on at the end of the mortgage. Business owners telling their workers to go home, but continuing to pay them their salary, or at least half their salary, so they can make ends meet. Young people shopping for groceries for their elderly neighbors. That's really the spirit of Arkansas, and that's what's gotten us through so many challenges in the past, and I know what will get us through this challenge now and in the future.
Well, what's going on? Are we kind of lucky to be in Arkansas?
So at the outset, lower population density and, for instance, no direct flights to Wuhan gives us a bit of a head start. And we're not seeing the kind of surge in our hospitals that they're already seeing in New York. But I want to be clear, we can anticipate that may happen. In the end, I'm very doubtful that any of our 75 counties will be spared from this virus. And I think some of our hospitals will face some tough circumstances in the weeks ahead. But we do because, again, we're a little bit more removed from the international travel circuit, and we have much lower population density than does a place like New York City or San Francisco have some more immediate natural defenses, but those are only in the short term, guys. I do think you're going to see this virus go everywhere. And I want to be clear, too, is that it's not anyone's fault in the United States. There's literally no one in the United States who's at fault of this. And whether you're the smallest business operating a restaurant down the corner or whether you're, a big Las Vegas casino or an airline, no one here engaged in bad acts. No one here was greedy and was coming to the federal government for a no-strings-attached bailout, as you've seen in the past. Everyone here is afflicted with the same challenge, and that's the China virus.
Tom, people are still texting. If you could go over one more time the $25K to $75K payout, who receives that and why?
Yeah. So it's not $25K, it's $2,500.
Oh, excuse me, $2,500.
So really, anyone who filed an income tax return in 2018, remember it's 2018 because we haven't filed our income taxes for 2019 yet. So for 2018, if you filed a return and you had between $2,500 and $75,000 of income, you will receive a $1,200 check per person and a $500 check for each child.
And that's combo.
So in a family of four in that income range, which again is the vast majority of our Kansans, you would expect to get a check of $3,200.
Okay. Visiting with Senator Tom Cotton. Senator, we're the greatest country on the planet, and, we learned a lot after 9/11 and things we changed. Obviously we're not through this yet, but looking at what are things that maybe that we're going to learn out of this that will come out of this prepared next time, in a better way. Is it too early to see that, or the things you see right at that, man, we need to, once we're done, these are the things we need to work on?
China is our enemy, and we need to treat them as our enemy. The simplest lesson.
Okay.
For instance, most Arkansans until the last month did not realize that we are entirely dependent on China for basic medical supplies.
Why is that?
Things like ibuprofen and Advil and antibiotics and penicillin, to say nothing of dozens of pharmaceutical agreements that go into finished drugs. It's the same reason why we're dependent on China for so much of our consumer products or so much of our manufacturing base. We outsourced all of these jobs and all of that industrial capacity to China over the last 30 years. That has to change, and it especially has to change and change quickly when it comes to vital products like basic medical supplies or masks and other medical personal protective equipment. And it should change in the long run for pretty much everything. We can no longer allow ourselves to be vulnerable and dependent on an adversarial communist government. Because remember, over the last 2 or 3 weeks, Chinese Communist Party officials have been threatening to withhold those supplies from the United States if we hurt their feelings. They are threatening to kill Americans at a time of dire crisis for us that they created.
Yeah, because that's what they do.
It's the bottom of, and Tom, one of the things is because we get it cheaper. So Americans may have to pay more, and that's what we have to do if that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
But guys, look at the legislation I just introduced last week. It would have both a stick and a carrot to bring pharmaceutical manufacturing back to the United States. So the carrot is we will let you immediately write off all of your expenses. So you want to go build a generic drug manufacturing facility in Baxter County, you can immediately write off the expenses for everything, for building it, for bringing in the equipment, for everything.
All right.
So that'll be a huge financial incentive to start building pharmaceutical manufacturing factories in this country once again. And the stick is going to be you can't import from China in the very near future. And in the meantime, every federal program that buys drugs, Medicare, Medicaid, the military, the VA, can no longer buy drugs that are sourced in China. So there's going to be a huge domestic demand, and there's going to be very generous incentives. And you can't tell me that once you get past those startup costs for building a generic drug plant in Baxter County or in Clark County, that it's that much more expensive for Arkansas workers to make those drugs than it is for Chinese workers. And make them right here at home so you don't have to pay the transportation costs. I just don't buy it, and I'm not going to accept it from any of these multinational corporations.
Well, Senator, we appreciate you joining us. One thing I've noticed, even after 9/11, and I go back a long way, in times like this, people in Arkansas seem to come together. They're more friendly. they're nicer, they're kinder to each other, but there's also a great deal of panic right now. Is there anything you can say to alleviate that panic?
I would just urge everyone to be prudent and cautious, but not panic. There's a difference between being prudent and cautious, but not panic.
Yeah.
For instance, I've spoken with the CEOs of some of our great food processing companies, of Walmart, of grocery stores. There's enough food in this country. We're not going to run out of food. There's even enough toilet paper, trust me, even though you don't see it on the shelves of Walmart or Kroger. But it's getting there. And as the demand is, as it's clear that there is demand, these companies are rushing products to the shelves, and truck drivers are pitching in and driving long hours under tough circumstances. It is, again, prudent to store for a couple of weeks. Yeah. But sooner or later, people are going to realize that the closet full of canned goods, the closet full of toilet paper, they've got enough.
Be a lot of stocking stuffers this holiday season. And oh, look, I got an apple and a roll of toilet paper in my stocking. That's great.
So you shouldn't worry about that. What you shouldn't worry about is making sure that those truck drivers are getting paid.
Yeah.
Or that they have a place to stop and get gas. They have a place to stop and go to the bathroom and get lunch. Yeah. That they're safe, and they have the personal protective equipment they need, like our grocers have, to actually keep themselves healthy, so they can keep delivering those food and those products to us in a timely fashion.
Well, this is done
likewise, when it comes to the virus, I mean. Yeah. You should be prudent about the virus. You should maintain distance. You should not go out to public places that are going to be congested. But at the same time, you should know that we can go about our lives to a degree that's possible. You can telecommute. You can FaceTime with your family and so forth. And we are going to get through this. And one of the reasons we're going to get through it is we're going to get through it together. Because you've got people at Walmart who are working extra hours, who are opening early for senior citizens to come in, who are buying groceries for their neighbors. It's like you said, Tommy, that there may be a sense of fear out there, but it's a time when you see the very best of our fellow citizens.
Senator, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Senator. We appreciate the time.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you so
much.
much.
Thanks, Tom. Senator.
Very, very good. Very
Tom.
good.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Keith Stokes.
For setting that up. Appreciate that.
Sorry, RJ.